But we've already detailed the evidence about Rustin Benham, all the questions that I think Rustin Benham owes an answer to for all the people, certainly the mining companies who have had billions of dollars stolen from them, the investors who have lost a lot of money, people who actually go to the mines, dig the silver out of the ground, lost their jobs, people who thought they were going to retire, people who saw fraud out of the Federal Reserve and saw what was happening to the purchasing power of their dollar or peso or euro. And I would say quite astutely responded by purchasing gold and silver, only to have that investment destroyed by this silver manipulation effort, which now has clearly detailed Rustin Benham of the CFTC. And as you're about to find out, now has made Donna Faulk-White the acting director of the Office of Public Affairs, defendant. Well, hello there, my friends. Chris Marcus here with you for Arcadia Economics on a Wednesday afternoon in the silver capital of the planet here in Mexico. And today we have a video about the CFTC and what looks like it's headed to a court case one of these days soon. In some ways, there is part of me that was hoping very much that this video would not need to be made. But unfortunately, after long deliberation and thought, meditation on that one, it does seem necessary. I really do a lot to focus on that balance between staying positive and also stop a crime in action that is affecting a lot of people, probably affecting you, which is why I'm guessing you're watching this channel or this video. And I'm going to read a letter that I emailed to Donna Faulk-White, who is currently the acting director of the Office of Public Affairs at the CFTC. So as you know, not my favorite organization. And basically what happened is that I've called almost every number in the CFTC's office, trying to get some sort of comment. Have they seen the evidence I submitted? We had the biggest crime in the history of the silver market on February 1st. February 2nd. No, on February 1st was when acting chairman Rustin Benham opened his investigation into silver manipulation. Then the biggest crime in the history of the silver market occurred the next day when the price of silver fell 10%, while demand records, historical demand records were set. I commented about it on the show. In fact, we talked about it days before it happened, if you review the option call from that previous Sunday night, January 31st. But I submitted my first round of evidence detailing what happened and the evidence, which in my opinion is clear as day. Many of you have seen it. The link to the evidence file is below. You can review it there. I've yet to hear anyone that I've accused anything of defend themselves. And I've sought out comment. I've left messages for Rustin Benham. I've called every extension in the CFTC's directory. I've called JP Morgan. I've called Goldman Sachs. I've asked to be connected to their legal department. I've left a message for Jeff Curry, which I did record. And on a side note, I have a new, I want to see if he'll get me if I can get him to write me a CDS contract so I can make prop bets with him. Kind of like they did in The Big Short. Then we can replicate that in the Big Silver Short movie. But I've contacted these people. I've contacted the CME when I see their position limits in gold and silver routinely violated, as was again the case this past month with JP Morgan. They said the CFTC is monitoring. Well, the CFTC may be monitoring, but the only people they communicate that to are the same banks that manipulate the market and that the CFTC is fined. They don't tell the public who pays their salary. Last count, over a $300 million budget. And yet with everything that's happened, they can't even comment to you. All of you people who own gold, silver, mining stocks, and you see your portfolio getting crushed on an almost daily basis on the open, when the market is spoofed down, like former CFTC Commissioner Bart Chilton actually had the courage to come on camera, show his face, and he talked quite clearly about it. He explained quite clearly why Gary Gensler, who had silver investigations and said he found nothing. And then last year, the same CFTC fines JP Morgan $920 million for the infractions that occurred while Gensler was doing his investigation. So I understand it might take them another 2 decades to get to what I've presented, which is a fucking joke in itself. But since I know there's actually people who are affected by this, I talk to the mining companies who have to meet a payroll, where their share prices get crushed. They don't get investors. I've come here in Mexico and seen in the silver capital of the world what the conditions are like. And I'm going to visit the mining sites. And I might add that I'm quite fortunate that at this point in my life, I don't need to do this anymore. I'm quite blessed that I'm in that position, and I do not take that for granted. But I will continue to do this as long as I see organized crime. It's not an accident JP Morgan's being charged with the RICO statute. This is an organized crime in the silver market. It's at the heart of a lot of other organized crimes in the US governmental structure. But we've already detailed the evidence about Rustin Benham. And if you want to see that again, I posted a link to that letter in the description field below. You can review that, all the questions that I think Rustin Benham owes an answer to for all the people, certainly the mining companies who have had billions of dollars stolen from them, the investors who have lost a lot of money, people who actually go to the mines, dig the silver out of the ground, lost their jobs, people who thought they were going to retire, people who saw fraud out of the Federal Reserve and saw what was happening to the purchasing power of their dollar or peso or euro. And I would say quite astutely responded by purchasing gold and silver, only to have that investment destroyed by this silver manipulation effort, which now has clearly detailed Rustin Benham of the CFTC. And as you're about to find out, now has made Donna Faulk-White the acting director of the Office of Public Affairs, a defendant in my case. And I am going to read you why that is. Because in the process of calling all these extensions at the CFTC, oddly enough, I did get a return phone call from Donna. And it was interesting because she made clear that she was aware of who I was. She had apparently at least seen a video, or maybe she had seen the evidence I submitted. First round on February 12th. It's a total of 3 rounds. And now this letter and this video will be submitted as a new round of evidence to the CFTC's TPS whistleblower hotline. And I might add that next week, I will be talking with Chris Lobo, good patriot. He's disgusted also by this shit out of the CFTC and has dug into the Freedom of Information Request Act. The CFTC actually has a page on their stupid website to get a Freedom of Information Request Act. We're going to put silver bounties on that to get the truth. Persistence, overwhelm them with the evidence. So anyway, here's the letter that I asked the same questions I've been asking on video over and over again. And then I've asked to Rustin Benham. And basically there were several rounds of phone calls which are described in the letter where she kept telling me, oh, well, I will definitely call you this Friday. This Friday would come, no call. Then check in the next week. Oh, well, I'll definitely get back. Keep in mind, the only thing that I asked for, I did not ask her to answer any of these questions, did not ask her to solve anything. The only thing that I actually asked the acting director of the Office of Public Affairs at the CFTC, who's Donna Faulk-White, is just who I could talk to get answers about my opinion as a financial analyst, the greatest crime in the history of finance. It's gotten to that point because it's been suppressed for so long. So let's read the letter. Dear Donna, I'm writing to follow up on our brief phone call from Friday, August 20th, 2021. Frankly, to be completely honest, I was absolutely stunned by what you told me when I asked you why you had still never returned any of my calls as you had promised on multiple occasions. First message you left me was on May 19th, over 3 months ago, and this was written on August 31st, I might add. You said you heard that I had called and you were returning my call to help answer some of my questions. You asked me to send you the relevant information and evidence, as well as what I was trying to get clarity on, and I did this about a week or so after our initial call. Happy to provide records of any of these dates if you need to review that. Keep in mind that all I ever asked you to do was connect me with the person who can answer any of those questions. I didn't expect you to solve it, but rather just fulfill your role as the media director and tell me who I need to speak with. I provided you with ironclad evidence of manipulative behavior on behalf of CFTC Acting Commissioner Rustin Benham. You promised me on several occasions that you would look into it and get back to me by a certain date. Of course, as we are both well aware, all of those dates came and passed, and you never called. Not even to say that you needed more time, but you just never called at all to say anything. Finally, when I called you that last time in June, prior to our brief phone call Friday, August 20th, I expressed my frustration, which given the history and context, I feel was rather respectfully controlled, yet justified. And to put clarity on that, that was when I basically said, this is a crime that's ongoing, that people are being stolen from now, that's affecting their lives at the same time the price of everything is going up. I'm saying I'm up late every night answering emails, explaining this, trying to figure out why Ross Benham doesn't answer any of these questions. So that's, I do feel that was respectfully controlled, yet justified. Continue on here. Acting Commissioner Benham regularly brags about being transparent, but has completely disappeared ever since he got caught with his hand in the cookie jar. And now nobody even hears from him unless he's out there selling more climate warming derivatives. Well, I tend to think that you're not involved in the things that these guys are doing. To this point, you have either intentionally or unintentionally obstructed justice in what will shortly be known as the greatest financial scandal in the history of Wall Street. So when you told me last Friday that the reason you never called me back after a lost call was because you just assumed I didn't want to hear from you, I hope you realize that's the financial equivalent of somebody committing murder, the victim's family repeatedly asking for information, getting absolutely none, then getting frustrated when they don't get any, and then ultimately you just tell them you decide not to call them back because you thought they didn't want to hear from you. With all due respect, you are the media representative of the CFTC. The agency charged with maintaining the integrity of the commodity markets that affect all of the currencies and products we use, which impacts every single person on the world, and has a budget of over $300 million, I might add. You'd have to repeatedly ask you to simply just direct me to the person who can explain how Rustin Benham's comments could be construed as anything other than price fixing. You decided to just simply forget about it? It actually took a day or two for that one to sink in. Although, the more I think about it, the more absolutely stunned I am that you actually even said that to me. As mentioned earlier, I still tend to believe that you're not directly involved in the fraudulent activity that the people who run your office regularly participate in. But the evidence is increasingly mounting that you're either running cover for them or just simply refusing to do your job. But a lot of people are being robbed while this is going on. And since I've gone out of my way to explain the importance of what's at stake here, I feel at this point we're past being able to call this a miscommunication, a matter of being busy, or not having enough time. In June, when I called you, you actually told me that the reason you didn't call me back that time was because of umpteenth day. It's a true story. So she was celebrating umpteenth day, so that's why she didn't call me back when she had promised. I wonder how the people who have had their money stolen for decades while this crime has continued would feel if they heard about that. How do you think a judge and a jury would respond if that was brought up during a trial? You think they would find umpteenth day a valid reason to ignore a crime that's been occurring for decades that you knowingly had clear evidence of but refused to act on? Anything you would feel if you had to face the victims of this crime, who are justifiably quite angry at this point, and explain to them why you chose umpteenth day and whatever else you've chosen, rather than addressing the most important issue currently facing the entire global financial system as well as your agency? What is it that you could have been doing that was that much more important than this for months? Something your agency has been denying for years, in fact, decades. Because if anyone at the CFTC is watching this, whenever you're ready to go CFTC trivia from the 1970s and 80s against me, you know how to reach me. My phone number is on those evidence submissions that you guys have not only held on to, but by not informing the public, that means you've suppressed them too. So when you're ready to discuss that in a courtroom, you let me know. So what was it that Donna Faulk-White could be doing that was more important than this? February 12th, I submitted detailed evidence about a specific crime that occurred on February 2nd, just 10 days earlier. This is despite not actually being employed by your agency. Yet while I was running my own business during perhaps the busiest time of my entire life, I did the work of the CFTC as well. Yet months later, the theft continues, and neither Rustin or any of the other CFTC representatives, or you, Donna Faulk-White, none of you ever seem to be able to find time to even acknowledge it. And as people who hit the subscribe button and watch in the future will find out, I have evidence. You guys talk about plenty of things. When it comes to silver, you can't comment because it's an investigation. Never have time to acknowledge it. This might be okay if we were talking about your local softball league, but this is people's livelihoods, their hard-earned savings, the integrity of our financial system. And Donna Faulk-White is the media representative of this government agency that has sworn a public oath. Yet after months of asking politely and respectfully, she still to this point decided to completely blow it off. Please know that I've decided to wait a week before sending this message in hopes that you would honor your word after our most recent phone call. Yet since you are receiving this letter, that means that you have not. In other words, you lied to me again. You also wasted my time, which is what I was so upset when I spoke to you about in June. Now you've made clear that you either don't care or that you're actively part of committing a crime. So I'm sorry it became necessary to send this message, because I really did do everything in my power to avoid ending up in this situation. But there are people who've been waiting 41 years for your office to display even a scant amount of integrity or desire to fulfill the oath that you've sworn to protect and taken $300 million a year for, stolen. If even after 3 months you still refuse to tell me who I can talk to, that no longer sounds to me like an innocent mistake. If you want to offer any response, you know how to reach me, and listen to what you have to say. But if you decide that you simply have more important things to do, and that you're not only going to violate your own word, but also the trust of the American people, I will include you, along with detailed records of our communications, as an accomplice to this crime as I move legal action forward. I'd really hope that would not be necessary. I thought you sounded like a good person, and I believed I'd heard the timbre of a person with integrity in your voice. Perhaps I was mistaken. But the clock is ticking now. And it suggests that the people that you think you are protecting and that you might think are going to protect you have most likely already been caught and will turn on you when this goes bad. Wink, wink, Joe Biden, who has a rather unscrupulous track record with children among his American constituents, a lot of foreign adversaries that he's created. This is the guy who put his name on appointing Rustin Benham, the man who Donna Faulk-White works for and runs cover for. And I might acknowledge, as I'll show you in a moment, she did receive this letter and confirmed receipt of it. You might be as disgusted by her response as I was. There is still a chance for you to be the hero here, and I really genuinely hope that's the path you will choose. However, if I have not received sufficient answers to my questions, or at least the contact information of who can answer them by the end of this week, which was months ago, I will broadcast this letter publicly. Because if you're going to participate in this crime, the public has a right to know about it, and I will encourage them to report you specifically by name to any legal and government authorities as appropriate. Again, as someone who does genuinely care about people and would much rather be able to focus his time on positive things in life, I do hope that you help us to avoid that outcome. As you can guess, that outcome was not avoided. And as you can see here, I was actually surprised that she wrote back. At least Benham just keeps his mouth shut. Mr. Marcus, the CFTC must decline to comment on your concerns and requests at this time. Which on one hand isn't surprising, but shows that she confirmed receipt of this letter, which will be added to my court file. A few final notes here before we wrap up for tonight. Now, I remember when I did this video where I shared my phone call with the SLV iShares representative, I was a little bit surprised because there were some critics in the comment who were accusing me of beating up on some minimum wage high school kid, which I thought was unusual because, as you could hear in that call, I even cut out one round of the first guy that I talked to who answered the phone, put me on hold to get to the next guy, who put me on hold to get to her. And she put me on hold several times to talk to someone. So I don't know why they're passing the ball down to a high school kid. Basically, this is someone that BlackRock hired to answer these questions, and she couldn't do it. So if anyone feels that's being unfair to Donna Faulk-White, I'm going to respectfully disagree. She is in the position of the acting director of the Office of Public Affairs at the CFTC, which means she works for Benham, who works for Joe Biden, who are ignoring evidence of treason. Maybe there's a legal expert out there who can tell me. Maybe Rustin Benham can tell me what crime that is. I don't know. If you would like to contact Donna, her phone number as publicly listed on the CFTC website, 202-418-5080. Fax number there as well, but I'll repeat the phone number. You can call Donna. Ask her for an explanation of this. She works for you. Your food's more expensive. Your paycheck is smaller. Your taxes are bigger because of people like her and Ross and Joe. So you can call her at 202-418-5080 if you don't understand this. Or if you prefer to email for some explanation, as you can see up here, dfaulk, D as in David, FAULK -white at cftc.gov. So that's how you can reach Donna. And a couple last notes here before we wrap up. As I mentioned earlier, we have been raising money for legal action, currently up to $31,600. None of that money has actually been spent. We do own a 1,000-ounce silver bar, so after this thing unravels, I mean, I don't know when we'll actually get this to court. I understand the court system in the U.S. has been highly corrupted by Joe Biden and his gangster buddies. But even after the reset, we'll still have that 1,000-ounce bar or for whatever we choose to use it for. I will be providing more an update on this going forward. But the link to this GoFundMe to raise money to continue this effort to hold these fraudulent regulators accountable is in the description field of every video. So if you'd like to contribute, even if you just share this, or if you'd like to contribute money to that, certainly, again, the money has not been spent. I take that quite seriously, and it's on my list to do the accounting, and we'll make a video making that public so you can see what has been going on. I have not taken anything for myself from this, so just to be clear. And a few last notes here again, February 1st, there's a statement of Rustin Benham on trading in silver markets. CFTC is closely monitoring recent activity in the silver markets. The commission is communicating with fellow regulators, the exchanges, and stakeholders, which apparently doesn't include the public, to address any potential threats to the integrity of the derivative markets for silver. He doesn't care about the underlying commodity, apparently, and remains vigilant in surveying these markets for fraud and manipulation. Still waiting there, Rusty. Here, I might add, is December 25th, 2013, CFTC closed an investigation concerning the silver market. Based upon evidence and law as they exist at this time, there is not viable basis to bring an enforcement action. Of course, 7 years later, here's when they find JP Morgan. And again, keep in mind, these were for crimes during 2008 through 2016. So that means Gary Gensler here was just flat out wrong. Now he's running the SEC. Well, the CFTC says if you have information about a violation of Commodity Exchange Act or commission regulations, you can file a tip or complaint under our whistleblower program, which I did on 3 occasions. Now I'm going to send the letter to Donna Faulk-White as round 4, and hopefully they're preparing my eligible award, which actually I don't really care about. I'd rather just call them out on this disgusting fraud. So anyway, if you would like to read any of those evidence submissions or see how to email Emily.German, who's for the House Agriculture Committee and is the oversight, or fraudulent Maxine Waters, here's all of her phone numbers. I even wrote out a sample email. You just copy and paste this baby, read the letter to Rustin Benham. Here's the first round of evidence I submitted on February 12th, second round on April 6th. You could also just send them the video where I read the letter to Rustin Benham, asking why he tamped down the market, why he told his buddies at the commodities banking houses, why he refuses to talk to the public, why he won't call me back. Is the silver price being tamped down at other times? Keep in mind, Rustin Benham, the CFTC, he's part of the Plunge protection team. Yes, the working group on capital markets that Reagan, under the guise of older George Bush, was really president since 1980, so he had 3 terms when you think about it like that. And when they created the working group on capital markets, because they didn't like the market crashing after they had fueled a real estate bubble, then it popped in October of 1987. Those guys that intervene in the markets, what you hear referred to as the Plunge protection team, this guy, Rustin Benham, he's part of that. But before we wrap up, let's end this on some good news. Because while I was searching for new footage of Rusty the Boss, I did find his mafia-like appearance here in the Senate Agricultural Committee. And what's cool is that you look around here, like Senator Boozman, and whoever that guy is, and whoever that guy is. Now that I'm getting a little better at organization and involving so many of the patriotic volunteers who have contacted me, many of whom I haven't even gotten a chance to respond back to. But now we can organize an effort so that every single person that was in this room, look at them. Look at all those people. We can send the evidence and then follow up, make sure they've confirmed it. Because then every single one of these guys, either they do something about it, or now they get to be listed as accomplices as I continue my legal filing, which we will have more about in the future, but I just thought that it was important because there's a lot that happens behind the scenes that I'm doing that people don't know about. And even after this letter in response to Donna, I called one more time just to hope. It's like, tell me off the record you're doing something. Just tell me something so I don't waste my time, Matt, because the crime is ongoing. And to be honest, she was, I mean, sure, I get it. Like, she doesn't want someone asking her to do her job. But she gave me one of those responses like, I'm not going to tell you anything. Stop asking. Buzz off. Which, when you're doing your craft with integrity, you get the right to say that. But when you're running cover for criminals, I find that offensive and disgusting, Donna Faulk-White. So that's why you can call Donna at 202-418-5080 or email her. Email all this information in the description field below. And with that said, thank you again for all of your support. If you would like to help in any way, you can share this link or make a financial contribution. It's also in the description field below. And with that said, I'll see you again soon.